while ago I was vlogging and I had a parent-teacher conference with my kiddos' preschool teachers, and they said this.
He's like such a good self-advocate. He's a great communicator. He's really in touch
to teachers and classmates.
Yeah, to teachers and classmates. He's so in touch with his feelings. He's able to name them.
Like being able to name, validate, and express, you know, in a kind and respectful way, all of those feelings at his age is not super typical.
Crazy. Yeah.
It's a really, really wonderful skill and something I know that we can tell you guys have put a lot of effort into.
You guys have asked me so many questions about how we prioritize this in our family and what we do, and honestly, I feel like if there's only one area that I'm rocking in motherhood, it is this one. So today I'm going to be sharing with you guys all of my tips for raising an emotionally intelligent child. So the first thing that Matt and I have done with our kids since they were born, before they could talk or even understand us, is name emotions as they occur. So for example, if Rowan was playing with a toy and he was getting upset that the pieces wouldn't fit together, we would narrate that for him and say things like, hey buddy, is that frustrating? Are you feeling frustrated by that right now? We try to make sure that these go beyond like happy, sad, angry, etc. One really good tool for this that I'll pop up right here is a feelings wheel. So we try to get as detailed as we can. And then we also do this for ourselves. So I can be like, hey, mommy's feeling really overwhelmed right now. I think I'm a little bit overstimulated, so I'm gonna walk in the other room and take a few deep breaths. And that has been the foundation for everything for us. Rowan specifically has a really large emotional vocabulary. He's able to name and work through very specific emotions, and I feel like he knows what he's feeling and why he's feeling it a lot of the time more than would be typical for a child his age. When I found out I was having a boy especially, I really wanted to make sure that he was taught growing up that feelings are okay, because I feel like a lot of men are taught that the only thing they're allowed to feel is anger. When he's feeling sad or disappointed or embarrassed, we teach him that that is very much okay, and that's not an emotion we have to cover up with anger, that it's okay to cry, that it's okay to be embarrassed, and those emotions on their own are not something that we need to avoid or try to like push to the side when they pop up. So that's my next tip, to reinforce that no emotion is good or bad on its own. Of course, we can have good or bad responses to our emotions. Like if you get angry, that's normal. If you choose to hit somebody because of that anger, that's probably a bad behavior. But things like feeling sad, feeling embarrassed, feeling angry, feeling vulnerable are all normal things. And on the flip side of that, really acknowledging when we're happy, when we're feeling proud of ourselves, when we're feeling loving. Another thing that I do to help with this is to make sure that I have a lot of emotional literacy materials on hand in our house that are easily accessible. So I want to show you guys a few of my favorites. So these posters in their playroom are from Etsy. They were digital downloads and then I just got them printed. The one I want to talk about is this feelings poster. And I love this one specifically because of the way that it illustrates the emotions on the children's faces. I feel like they are very different from each other, whereas a lot of them, like, you know, excited and happy look exactly the same. And when we were first building our emotional vocabulary, this was the first tool we used. We started with these 12 emotions and built out from there, and it has been incredibly helpful. And then it's just always there for him in the playroom as a reference. We also love these emotional literacy flashcards. I just grabbed a few of them and I'll link them down below. But Rome will often go to these in the little feelings tent that we have, because one of his coping mechanisms that works very well is to have a little bit of alone time. And so he will go through these cards and pick the one that he's feeling, and that really helps empower him and honestly calms him down. And then, surprising no one, of course, books are a big part of this for us too. So starting in infancy with this Love Every How I Feel book. This is, again, like just an introduction, and I love that it illustrates what that might look like in somebody's body. And then as they got a little bit older, we went into storybooks that illustrate similar points. So this one is definitely my favorite. It's called Grumpy Monkey. It's about this little monkey who's feeling grumpy. He's having a bad day. All of the different animals are trying to fix it and tell him what to do, trying to kind of get him to rush past the emotion of feeling grumpy and like fix it. And at the end of the day, he just needs his friend to sit with him while he feels a little bit grumpy. and that's okay. So it's great to teach your kiddos about emotions and feelings and working through them, but you also gotta walk the walk. So another big thing that Matt and I do is talk about our emotions and our struggles, especially, very openly, and narrate as we move through them. So for example, if I'm doing a craft project and it's not going well, it's really hard, I will out loud be like, wow, I'm really frustrated. This is so hard and it's making me feel very angry inside and like XYZ, blah, blah, blah. I'm feeling disappointed in myself that I, kind of run through the gamut of what I'm doing. And then at the end, if I succeed or if I fail or whatever, I will also narrate the outcome. So in a perfect world, I keep going until I have achieved my objective and I'll be like, wow, that was really, really hard. But you know what? I kept going and I got it in the end. And we see this reflected back in the kids all the time. Like just the other day, I was doing a little activity with Rowan, and it was like part of the activity was he had to blow up a balloon. And at first he was like, I can't do it. And then he was like, I can do hard things. And he tried again. And then after he did it and I tied the balloon off for him, he was like, Mama, I thought I couldn't do it at first. And I was really frustrated, but then I did it and I did every one. And he told Matt the same thing when he got home. And I was like, yes. It was like seeing that modeling actually have an effect and like seeing the fruition of those efforts was so satisfying. And he will also often encourage me if I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so hard, or I'm frustrated. He'll be like, you can do hard things, Mama. And it is like the most motivating thing, especially if I'm like working out and he sees me struggling. He's like, you can do hard things, Mama. I'm like, yeah, I can. Now, if we are having some emotions that we're having a hard time working through, say there is a tantrum happening, inconsolable, crying, really angry, something like that, a big thing that we have learned is to not try to teach coping mechanisms in the moment, because their little brains are not wired to accept and implement that information in a time of very heightened cortisol. So we try to make sure that we're playing games back and forth during like non-stressed times when he's not feeling like really big emotions. And so we'll teach him things like breathing. Like one of the ones that we do that's really helpful is 5-finger breathing. He really, really likes that one, especially because like he can make it a little bit silly. Naming our emotions, XYZ. Try to make sure that we do those outside of any actual conflict so that he can pull from them when he is having a hard time because he already knows them. And I'm not just like telling him to calm down while he's crying. You know what I'm saying? Another big thing is that when we do this, we will give him an option of what he can do, because so often the temptation is to just be like, it's okay to be angry, but it's not okay to hit, and to leave it there. But what kids do really well with is when you tell them what they can do instead. So I can say, hey, I can see you're feeling really angry. That's totally okay. Anger is an okay emotion for you to feel. Even if it's at me, I'm like, it's okay to be angry at Mama. How about we try stomping our feet? Or we have like a little IKEA toy that's like a hammer, and you can like bang things into the thing with the hammer, and so we'll use that as a tool. I'll say like, hey, how fast can you punch this pillow? Giving him some options of what he can do to direct that anger in his body has been so helpful. I think it just gives him a little bit more agency, and he doesn't feel like those feelings are just being brushed off. And then he's like, okay, well, you're telling me I can't hit. I have all this anger in my body. It needs a physical outlet. What do I do? We just give him the options right then and there. Another thing that I do as far as like emotional regulation, maturity, all of that goes with the kiddos, is I try to focus on inward motivation versus like external motivations. So when they do something that's like really awesome, instead of being like, I'm so proud of you, which of course I still do sometimes, I try as often as I can to be like, dude, how did that make you feel? Are you so proud of yourself right now? And like he'll go through like, I'm feeling happy and I'm proud of myself and, you know, XYZ. And so trying to have them focus on that internal motivation of like, I want that feeling of pride in myself rather than I want praise, is something that is hard, I think, especially for me, because I just want to praise my kids all the time. But this is something we learned in the potty training course or the potty learning course from Big Little Feelings, and it has worked wonders. This is something else that we do like with art projects, when Rowan will come up and show me like a drawing that he's done. Instead of like immediately just praising and going over the top, I'll be like, oh my gosh, buddy, can you tell me about this? Like, what were you thinking when you did this part? Or like, tell me what this means, or why did you choose this color or whatever? And so he focuses on the process and his own efforts. This is something I'm not perfect at, because again, I am a very proud mom, and I do think that it's good to praise your kids. Like, I'm not saying don't ever tell your kid I'm proud of you, because that's a whole other set of issues, but I think you need both, you know? Something else that Matt and I focus on as a couple is modeling conflict resolution. So we do argue in front of our kids. I'm not saying that we have like big blowout fights in front of them. We definitely don't do that. But we'll have small disagreements in front of them, and one of us might get upset or, you know, a little bit huffy, and we take a little bit of time and then we model the resolution in front of them and we talk to them about it. If they're curious, if they have any questions, I'll be like, hey, mommy was feeling really frustrated about this. And it's not about like making them a part of your problems, because these are small things, right? This is like, hey, why did you put the cheese in this drawer or whatever? But seeing how we both come back together and model the resolution has been hugely helpful in them mediating their own conflicts, and also in them feeling like their boundaries are going to be respected. And on that note, the last tip that I have is to empower their yeses and nos. We are very big on consent in this household. We definitely talk about boundaries a lot, both emotionally and physically. And part of that is really respecting our kids' boundaries. So like the word stop is like hands up in our house, 100%. Like if Matt's tickling Rowan and he says stop, it's like, okay, I heard you say stop, hands go up. Of course, like so much of the internet, we also do things like not forcing our kids to like hug and kiss relatives, hello or goodbye, if they're not feeling it. It's like really not that much of an issue for us because all of the family is kind of on the same page. But we want to let them know that their yeses and their nos matter and they have an impact on what happens. And that also transfers to when they deal with other people. They take other people's yeses and nos very seriously, which I think is great. So those are all my tips on how to raise an emotionally intelligent child. If you have any questions at all, please leave them down below in the comments and I will get back to as many of you as I possibly can. This is something that I am so passionate about, and there's so much in motherhood that I feel like I should be doing this more, I should be doing this less, but this is one area where I'm like, I feel like I got this one on lock. So happy to share. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you want any more parenting tips or advice, I will put my playlist for what I wish I had known about different topics, like potty training, my biggest parenting regrets, how to transition from 1 to 2 children. You should definitely go and check that out, and make sure that you're subscribed if you enjoy this kind of content, or you want to see other mom content like vlogs and toddler activity ideas and meal ideas. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love you a lot, and I can't wait to see you in my next video. Bye!
I follow only golden